It is very wonderful to welcome Melody Rachel once again to this podcast. She is a thespian and the host of the You Know I podcast. We met a few months ago, uh, earlier this year, and we're here to discuss the show that she just did. It's titled Demo, and it's very interesting, although because of geographical location, I couldn't attend one of her programs. So, Melody, welcome to the show once again.
Thank you. It's really good to be here.
Right. I actually would like to spend a few minutes talking about the Australian Aboriginal Voice Initiative. I believe the referendum was held and it failed to pass, so to speak. More people voted no than yes. So, what's your takeaway from this?
Well, I can't even vote because I'm a New Zealand citizen, and I don't know which way I would have swung. There was so many voices out there. Excuse the pun. That it was hard to know what exactly it was and what it was for. But it didn't pass. Some people were outraged at that, especially in the arts. I guess I'm just here, so I just let Australians do Australians and.
So, are you currently residing in Australia or New Zealand?
Australia.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. I understand that New Zealand has its own, I guess, discourse regarding Indigenous affairs, right?
Well, the Indigenous people in New Zealand are Māori. Yeah. But in New Zealand, they're much more integrated into society than they are here. I think while the colonization was horrible, it was less severe than Australia.
I see. So what do you suppose is what New Zealand's doing that is different from what Australia is doing in the vis-a-vis the integration of its Indigenous citizens?
I would just say they're less racist.
Okay. Perhaps that's the key, right? Everyone should be less racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that should be the title of an anti-Ibram Kendi book, right? He writes a book
everyone should be less racist.
Yeah, like he wrote a book titled was it "We Should All Be Anti-Racist," but now we say we should all be less racist.
Yes, or not racist.
Yeah, that could be even better.
Yes.
Okay, so it is very early in the morning where you are. So
it is.
I hope this is in no way impede I guess your how you call it awakenness.
Do you mean I didn't get up especially for this? Because I totally did.
Oh, that's
I don't get up at 5:30 usually.
Okay. Wonderful.
So you should feel special.
Do you feel woke enough for this interview, I suppose?
I love it. Well, I've got my iced coffee, so.
Nice. So your show, Demo, when was the last performance?
So I performed Demo at the Sydney Fringe Festival. I did for anyone that doesn't know, a Fringe Festival is an open access arts festival. Sydney had their Fringe Festival in September, so I performed a 5-night season, and that was a second showing actually. So I did the show in Christchurch in February this year, but it was a completely different show. And I'm of the opinion when you make a show, every time you perform it, you just keep generating new material and you shape it and you sharpen it and you make it better. But I took a piece from the first showing that I did and pretty much made the whole show about that, which was holding up placards. I held up like signs, placards for people to essentially pick between, because I feel like we're living in a society where we are forced to pick between choices. And at first I made them opposites. But then I started to obscure the choices, so it was kind of like a false dichotomy that people were picking through, which I sort of feel like is reflective of our society. We're often forced to pick between a false dichotomy.
Yeah. So what are the examples of these placards? And if possible, you can show them on this video conversation.
No, I don't have them here, but well, I'll give you one example. I would be like cats or dogs, crunchy or smooth, right? These are very just sort of easy things to pick. And then I went to more complex subjects like capitalism or tax the rich.
Mhm.
And then I went to Jesus or religion, feminism or men, sex or gender, lesbian or queer, social justice or justice, just different things like that. And I'm hoping I can add some more. I'm taking the show to Adelaide Fringe in February. Wow. So yeah, the audience, essentially, I hold up these placards and the audience just pick between the two. So it's kind of interesting. One night I had like a very left-leaning audience. So they were like cheering for the left-leaning stuff like tax the rich. But then one night I had more of a conservative audience and they were cheering for the more conservative things I put up. So it was kind of interesting. And it's kind of interesting, like, do people feel safe to choose? Do people want to choose? Do people have opinions, or are they just going to watch what everyone else does? So it's really audience interactive in that way.
Yeah. So I guess being the amateur social studies person, from doing this show, do you find that certain words or phrases provoke more negative reaction depending on the audience's political leanings than others?
Yeah. I held a placard up saying female privilege or white privilege. And someone from the audience yelled, female privilege doesn't exist. So I felt like that for people that feel that women are oppressed in the West, or they had a more sort of negative reaction, or people had a negative reaction towards feminism and men because they're not, that's a false dichotomy. They're not polar opposites and they're not mutually exclusive. Like, you can support both causes. So yeah, I think I could have gone further with it, but I don't know. It's all a risk. Yeah, it's all a bit of a risk, but yeah, people definitely had their own sort of reactions to it, which was interesting.
Yeah. And what I find, participating in political discourses in the capacity that I do see that in the left as well as in the right, there are different political vocabularies being used. So there are certain words which are more often mentioned if you're a left-leaning person. So social justice, queer, Black Lives Matter, et cetera, et cetera. And there are more words that are more favored amongst the right. So the family, small government, let's go Brandon, to put it out there. So
American politics.
So it can, in some ways, make political discourse very hard because it's almost like you're speaking different languages. Do you find that to be the case in your circles?
I think so. I was talking to someone yesterday about social justice rhetoric. So saying things like white privilege or cisgender, that kind of stuff. It is difficult to engage with people who think like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I don't see people so much as their group identity. Some people might say, oh, well, you're just a white person, but I mean, I'm sure, I don't know. Do you elevate group identity as much as maybe the people around you?
Well, I certainly detect a lot of political tribalism in my own circle.
But you're an Asian man in Italy, right? Austria. Hungary. So you are a minority. So I understand minorities will see themselves in terms of their group identity. I mean, I guess I'm a gay person, but I don't really think of it in that way so much. But maybe for race it's different. I don't know.
I think a sense of group loyalty would be elevated if a certain group feel themselves to be threatened by the dominant culture. So I suppose
Right.
even being a Vietnamese, and we have I think I noticed a very substantial amount of Vietnamese people in this capital of Hungary, Budapest. But we don't really have the kind of like weird group solidarity the same way as, say, Black Americans or Indigenous Canadians do, because we don't feel our sense of being threatened by the current government. Maybe
Right, but some
different.
people, it's sort of it's subjective to the person. I feel like some people feel like as a woman, their identity is threatened in the West, or as a gay person, and some of us don't. Like, I don't personally feel like my identity is at threat as a gay person, but then some gay people do. I don't know what that's about, whether that's sort of a more of a victimhood mentality, or maybe people have had different experiences. I know I've had a lot of negative experiences for being gay, especially in the church or family members. So part of me is like, okay, I've had all these negative experiences, but I don't feel as oppressed as you guys are making it out to be. So I don't know if it's more to do with attitude as opposed to societal function.
Mhm. Yeah. So I've sort of been looking more at what does it mean to be oppressed? Like, I know that there's a dictionary definition of being oppressed. It means that you are being prejudiced against or being denied certain rights that other people do not have, just because of a certain characteristics of your being that you you hold dear. So you can be oppressed because of your religion or sex or race. But in terms of people feeling themselves to be oppressed, that's highly personal, and I'm rather curious as to how when people describe themselves to be oppressed, like what other sentences do they make that support their personal feelings.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just one point there, like in terms of rights, it's so interesting because everyone has the same rights. Except I would probably argue, I mean, Indigenous people are much more oppressed because of the history. But if we're just talking about like immigrants or gay people, women, like we do have the same rights, but it's more about discrimination.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah, trans people have the same rights as straight people. It's just discrimination based oppression. But yeah, again, I don't know. I mean, I've got people that would say if a man is rude to them, he's being sexist. If a man was rude to me, I would say that man is an asshole. So what makes someone sort of paint the group, and they're thinking about it in a male female group identity dynamic, and they're like, oh, the man is being an asshole to me. There's a word for that. There's misogyny, there's sexism. I'm just looking at it as on an individual level, that person is being an asshole. But maybe I would feel differently if it happened more frequently. Do you know what I mean? If men were constantly assholes to me, I would be like, that's just sexism. I'm being treated differently because I'm a woman. So it's really hard to know. And it's easy for me to just write people off as being victims, but I don't know their experiences. So I think in that situation, I probably wish I just had a bit more grace for people, and I just listened to people a bit more instead of saying, oh, you're making it up, you're not oppressed, because you can't really tell people they're not oppressed, because as soon as you do that, they just look for reasons as to why they are. Do you know what I mean? They become more entrenched in their beliefs.
Okay, maybe that's the Christian in you speaking. Yeah. So speaking of, I think you've expressed this to me in our last conversation, as well as your other podcasts. But of course, you growing up a gay person in the church, where I'm sure what really irked you was that Christian who claimed to be embodying the values of Christ became reacted very heatedly when someone says that they are gay. So do you find that this level of hypocrisy comes from the fact that, well, God teaches you to be such, or is it just because hypocrisy is an error of man?
Yeah, hypocrisy is an error of man, and it's so funny because I'm a Christian, but I deeply believe in this idea of sin, that we are very sinful. It's like a disease, or it's like a birth defect, or it's just a nature. Like, I feel like we're all sinful. Jesus died for our sin, and through relationship with him, we're becoming sanctified through conviction, confession, repentance. So that sounds all very religious and Christianese, but how I think about it is, back to your question, the word homosexuality isn't a vice list. Some argue it's in the book of Romans, and I don't even know where it is, Corinthians now. Sexual immorality, homosexuality. There's arguments that the translation homosexuality was only put in there in 1946. But unfortunately, what Christians do is they elevate it. And I think it's more of a cultural thing to say, oh my God, she's gay, she is a sinner. But what they don't realize is, by pointing the finger at me, they're sort of trying to say, oh, you're sinful and I'm not. But it's like, we're all sinful. When I talk about sin, I'm not talking about behavior. Again, I'm talking about that nature that that's selfish or envious or resentful, and wants to cut other people down to get to the top, self-obsessed, like that kind of nature, prideful. Unfortunately, a lot of religious or legalistic Christians means they just take the Bible really literally. They're blinded by their own pride, and it's hard to see. But I think once you have the love of Jesus in you, you can actually have the capacity to sort of to love those people. Pray for your enemies, bless those who persecute you, is what Jesus said in the gospel. You can embody that through Jesus' spirit in you. Did that kind of answer your question? I think I veered off a bit.
Yeah. But still, in the same vein, do you feel the presence of Jesus in someone who chastises you for being gay?
No, I don't. I don't. Quite often, Jesus also says in the Bible, before you judge a speck in your brother's eye, take the log out of your own. I think quite often when people point the finger, they've got their own stuff that they can't deal with, and it's just easier. It's easier to point the finger, or they're blind and ignorant, which is just unfortunate, because I feel like the true state of the Christian is to really see yourself as the worst. Because once you get close to Jesus, he holds up a mirror to your soul, and you see yourself and you're like, my goodness, I need a savior. I need sanctification. I need oneness with God. I'm so sinful. That is the right state to be in. That's the state I'm in. So when people look at me and they're like, you're gay, I'm just like, do you want to see what else is inside my heart? Like, you're looking at something that you can see and you think it's wrong, but you have no idea of the condition of my heart, and it's so wretched. I'm not trying to say I'm a bad person, but I know I can see myself. I can see the envy. I can see the malice and the things that I do. And to me, that is way more pressing than, same-sex attraction, whether that's detrimental to me or not. I think envy, resentment, hatred to others is much more detrimental to my soul than that. And I think that's what God's showing me. So
yeah. I'm reminded of the life of Roy Cohn, this public official in the US who was Senator Joe McCarthy's right-hand man during the 50s and such. And he became sort of a mentor figure to Donald Trump too. I'm surprised to learn. And during the end of his life, he was very critical of gay people because of the AIDS crisis and such. And he, of all people, contracted AIDS and passed away of it. And it was widely known that he contracted because of a gay sexual encounter. So
he was critical of gay people, but he was gay himself.
Well, he wouldn't say he was gay, but he certainly had like gay sexual encounters, one of which resulted in him having AIDS. There's that play by Tony Kushner called Angels in America, where he is one of the main characters. So being a thespian, I'm sure you will be interested in that. But
yep.
I do see a tendency in people who see in others very critically the sins or the vices that they commit, that they themselves commit. So they're very critical of the sins that they themselves commit. So and it is true that for many who are vehemently homophobic, they themselves are secretly gay, for example.
It's so interesting. Yeah. It's like they get into this point of like self-flagellation or self-hatred that they they point the finger at others, or maybe they feel guilty for being gay, or I think it's a cultural thing. Our culture, well, not today, but back 60 years ago, I mean, maybe we're still feeling the effects, but disliked gay people.
So
and I don't know if that was just from a misreading of the Bible, or they think we're unnatural, and but we're moving forward.
I believe the passage in Leviticus, I'm reminded of the one that came to mind where it comes to like same-sex relations. So there's one passage that says, if a man finds himself lying with another man, then both men should be executed, so to speak. So I guess in that version of the law, it says that the homosexual act, so to speak, is considered against Jewish law. So
I think you can write. I think the Levitical laws are not applicable to us today. They were pre-Jesus, and the Levitical laws were for the Israelites of that time to separate them, or the Jews or the Israelites, to separate them from people of the world. So you also find, things in Levitical laws like don't eat pork, or don't. I mean, it's been a while since I've been in Leviticus, but that those laws are not applicable to us.
Yeah, I'm sure they are still applicable to those who are like committed Orthodox Jews, but yeah, I think for Christians we don't have to remember all of them, and that's a blessing, I think. But yeah, so regarding the New Testament, were there passages that anti-gay Christians flout when they try to justify their beliefs?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, it's the vice lists. People really like to get into the vice lists. I'm just trying to find it here. Like I've got it somewhere. Romans 1. So God gave them over to their unnatural desires, and the woman inflamed with lust for each other. I did a podcast episode on this recently. The times in the book of Romans that they were having orgies, and that's talking about lustful sex, or quite often those relationships were there's a term called pederasty, so that's male
having men with boys.
So, with boys, so you really just gotta. I don't know why people point the finger and say, "Oh, see, look at this." My belief is that some of those Bible verses are just not. They don't apply to our world. The other verses, say, slaves obey your masters, wives submit to your husbands. I mean, it's all just. It's hard to say. I was interviewing a guy the other day. He said, "It's not wives submit to your husbands as in female submission.
Mhm.
It's yeah, wives submit to the church, and so also to your husbands. It's like the submission of equality, submit to each other as you would submit to God. But people might take those Bible verses and they just abuse it and say, well, this means women are less than men. I mean, they do that with Black people too, like to condone slavery. And now they're doing it to condemn homosexuality. I don't know. I think we have to look at Jesus, and we have to look at how he lived his life, how he treated others. And really the core of Christianity is about exhibiting those qualities through God's Spirit in us. So I think, if anyone's going to look at the Bible and use it as a set of principles or morals, they're quite often going to become sinful in a different way. That's just behavior modification. There's no supernatural change of the heart.
Mhm.
I think you can detect spiritual fruit in people, which are the fruits of the spirits, joy, love, peace, kindness, gentleness, self-control. Look for people that emulate those qualities.
Mhm. Yeah. So the American British writer Andrew Sullivan, whom I've discussed with you about, he comes up with a term in the mid 2000s called Christianness. So Christian corresponds to the term Islamists. So people who interpret scripture, in this case, the Bible, through political lens. So they are the reason why when people think of Christian or Christianity in the US, you automatically think of the right, even though there are perhaps just as many, if not more, Christians on the left/liberal spectrum than it is in the conservative right-leaning sphere. But it is true that since at least the 80s and 90s, there's been a force in the right of America that um, weaponizes Christianity. I cannot think of a better word, unfortunately, for political ends. So they would use the Bible to justify their preferred political programs while denouncing the political programs and positions that they do not like. I see this in my own church as well, Catholic, when you have like a growing number of people who really dislike Pope Francis, even though I don't see anything un-Catholic about the current Pope. So it's politics is what happened to render unto Caesar what's Caesar's and all that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is a political identity in a way. The Christian conservative evangelical Republican.
Yeah, that
I mean,
common.
our societies were founded on Judeo-Christian values, right? We have these values like indented in us, like do unto others what you would have done to you, like love your neighbor. Like these are things we believe. I don't know if we all do them. But yeah, the Christian right seems to be quite legalistic.
Mhm.
In,
Yeah.
in a sense, and I'm just kind of legalistic. I just want to make sure I've got this word right. Yeah. So Christian legalism is concerning adherence to moral law rather than faith.
Mhm.
So Jesus actually talks against this in the Bible. So does Paul. Like it's not by the law. It's faith through Jesus, but people are trying to follow a law
Mhm.
without the Spirit. So they just become horrible people. I don't know. Have you met a Christian conservative Republican who's that nice? It's probably up to the individual, but it's just like they end up, unfortunately, just being inflamed with self-righteousness and pride, which is just worse for your spirit than anything else, I believe.
Mhm. I suppose I've never had an encounter with like the typical Christian conservative evangelical right and all that, but I've met Christians in my life, and for the most part, they're all very nice people. They hold social views that are way more conservative than I do, but overall, they're welcoming folks.
Okay. So we've just had different experiences.
Yeah, I suppose
Maybe it would be different if you were gay.
Oh, okay. Well,
Oh. Oh, identity politics. I'm oppressed. No, but I'm serious, those people do treat you a bit differently, unfortunately. But you just got to love, because love wins, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So speaking of which, having also one foot in the LGBT, et cetera, community, as you perhaps may find yourself in, what are some of the misconceptions that this particular community have regarding Christianity?
I mean, the biggest misconception is that God hates the gays, or that it's wrong to be a homosexual. It's obviously God does not hate the gays. He loves us. I mean, concerning right or wrong, I just wouldn't even worry thinking about that. I think Jesus loves us and he wants relationship with us. But unfortunately, other Christians put gay people off because they're like, oh, well, it says this in the Bible, so you can't be gay and Christian. It's like, well, look at me. I've got a relationship with Jesus, so yeah, biggest misconceptions about, I mean, yeah, that's probably it. Or that maybe Christians are all the same. I mean, I feel like people maybe have that conception or misconception of the LGBT community, that we're all the same, we think the same. Just because you're gay, you're much more of an individual than you are gay, and just because you're Christian, you're much more of an individual than you are Christian. So both have got misconceptions of each other, I feel.
Yeah, having a bit of knowledge in the theological differences between all sects of Christianity, I can say that nope, not all Christians are the same. We disagree about some of the most basic things constituting what it means, what Christianity means. So there's that. So do you have a theological basis as to why God creates some people to be same-sex attracted?
No.
Okay.
I don't think some people think it's like genetic, right? I don't know. I feel sexuality is so, it's fluid. I mean, I'm just a lesbian, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. I maybe there is some dudes out there that I'm attracted to, or maybe I've just so entrenched in my identity as a lesbian that I don't think about it. I know there's a lot of bisexuals. Yeah, I mean, I know our culture is very open. Maybe that has something to do with it. Yeah, I don't know. Why are some of us gay? What sexual orientation interests me. I don't think of it like that. Although I was talking to a bisexual yesterday and I was like, you like have sex with guys and girls. That is so fascinating. Because I'm not sexually attracted to men at all. Like when I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's really interesting. But yeah, I don't have any idea why some of us are gay.
So I'm of the camp of I'm not attracted to guys, but if Ryan Gosling comes up to me, who knows?
I think it would depend on the man's heart, who he is,
I see. So, do you think that Australian Christianity, or at least your church in particular, have become more open to its gay members?
Yeah, I mean, there's a thing called quote unquote an affirming church. So some churches affirm gay people and they let them serve in the ministry and they just treat them like they're normal people. And then there's other churches, like big charismatic church in Australia, in Sydney, called Hillsong. They'll say anyone welcome. We welcome everyone, but they don't let gay people serve in the leadership. So it's kind of like, you're welcome, but we're going to treat you differently, which is, yeah, you just sort of are treated a bit differently. I had sort of felt that, but luckily when I went to Hillsong, I found people that just saw me for me and wasn't judgment. Some people judge, and I think that's just more to do with them. I think as you grow in your relationship with Jesus, judgment from others sort of washes away. But yeah, I mean, and some people don't even know. They're so indoctrinated, they don't know how to think about it. They're like, would I go to your wedding if you were a Christian and you're having a same-sex wedding, like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm just like, well, it doesn't matter if you love the person. Just treat them like everyone else.
Now, to my knowledge, there are still like issues regarding the treatment of gay people in the Catholic Church, but I think if you can make it to like the higher ranks of the church if you're gay, because well, once you are sworn into the priesthood, you swore an oath of celibacy, so it doesn't really matter what type of person you are attracted to. But yeah, but that is also a problem, so to speak, that I hear Catholics speak about, like when it comes to LGBT and stuff, in that they believe that who you are attracted to is not your identity. Like it's not something that you base your identity upon. So perhaps that forms the core of the church's treatment of its homosexual members. Like we welcome you as brothers and sisters in Christ, but we object to the fact that you identify yourself as gay and such, because being attracted to humans of either the same or the different gender is not a component or a core part of your identity. So what are your thoughts on that?
I would agree it's not a core part of our identity, but I mean, Jonathan Haidt talks about this, right? We need identity politics when people are being treated differently on the basis of their identity. So I would rather never think about being gay again. And I don't in the wider society, because I think we're pretty much accepted, but in the church, yeah, we're treated differently on the basis of that identity. So it sort of becomes elevated without without my choosing. Like I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm gay. So I'm more reminded about it by how others see me. But yeah, I think it's such a small part of our identity. It's not core to who we are. We're individuals. We're human, just like everyone else. We have temperaments and personalities and interests, and yeah, being gay is literally just who you're attracted to. It's not a cultural identity. Yeah, at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and going back to what we discussed earlier, I do feel that obviously one's identity is multifaceted. There are many labels, so to speak, I can ascribe to myself other than male, Vietnamese, etc., etc. But but in circumstances where you're attacked or persecuted because of this one or more of these characteristics, you suddenly identify yourself wholeheartedly with these characteristics, and it goes to currently people who are, say, Black in America or Indigenous in Canada, or since we're talking right now during the terrible situation going on in the Middle East, Jews or Palestinians. So that part of the identity is elevated, and people cling very heartily to that component of themselves.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, we do need to elevate it when one group is lacking. So hey, my Jonathan Haidt puts it like this: like, my brother is struggling. We need to lift them up. Mm-hmm. They're struggling because of their group identity. But then there is identity politics when you use it in a negative way. It's like you're what's the word I'm looking for, when you use it to point the finger at people. Oh, well, you're white. So it's like yeah, I'm lost for words, but there's a good way to use identity politics and there's a bad way to use it. Mm-hmm. And I think, yeah, the bad way is us trying to dehumanize others because of their identity. So racism, both ways, sexism, both ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe I recently talked to someone who writes about like the dehumanization mentality that we all have, and I'll send you the info of the the guy afterwards. Yeah, his name escapes me now, but um, he he believes that it certainly there's a certain tribal factor into it, as in once you form and identify very wholeheartedly with the tribe, so to speak, of which you find yourself in, you identify a certain other, and that other becomes like an enemy, so to speak. So if you really identify yourself as gay, then the straights are the people whom you dislike, and that goes the same with white and black and trans and cis, whatever that means, Jews and Arabs, and um, and of course, that form of identity politics can be detrimental to the functioning of a liberal society, because in a liberal society, the basic unit is individual and not group.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's kind of what our liberal society is. That's our thought now. We are individuals, and it's created a very liberal, free society once we see each other as individuals. I think Jordan Peterson sort of rails against this whole idea of seeing people in terms of their group. I mean, my only criticism with him is he's not taken into consideration, like I said before, the mistreatment of people because of their group identity. But it's relative, subjective in a way. Like, some people are mistreated more than others in the West because of their identity. And quite often, if you're mistreated because you're a woman, or because you're gay, or because you're black or immigrant, or whatever, you are going to elevate this identity and say, if you, and there's, I mean, this is the whole thing of like the woke culture now. It's uplifting the marginalized. So there's things in place to give you benefit if you're a woman or gay or not white, immigrant, disabled. Like, there's so many categories, especially in the arts. Like, it's to your benefit. You get something special if you're part of a quote unquote marginalized identity or minority identity group, because they believe that society oppresses these identities.
Yeah, and the name of the guy that I talked about is David Livingston Smith.
Okay.
He wrote a book called Making Monsters, and that was the topic in which we discussed. And yeah, I'll send you the info after we finish chatting. And of course, you can invite him to your podcast too. He's a very fascinating.
I hope so.
Okay, so I believe what I was thinking is that, boy, I lost my train of thought, but yeah. Oh, right. I was thinking about the two concepts of justice and fairness that belie certain arguments that we have in the Anglosphere. I'm thinking specifically in the United States regarding affirmative action for Black people and other racial minorities. So there's this concept of justice that says we should treat everyone equally, and whoever gets the best score in a aptitude test gets into university and such. But there's the other concept of justice in that we should treat people who are less advantaged than you are, or have been disadvantaged for time immemorial, so to speak, better, or we should give those who have been previously disadvantaged more advantage, or we should give the people with less advantage more advantage. So that is in some ways a direct descendant of John Rawls and his theory of justice. But so I wonder if have you given any thought on like how these two competing concepts of justice hold or interact?
What you just said there about, what did you say? Giving people who have been disadvantaged an advantage?
Yeah. So
I mean, on its head, that's a great thing, right? But it's conceptual. It's sort of theoretical. It doesn't take into consideration individual experience. Like, if I go back to the arts, like if you're going to give like a a female person a grant as opposed to a male on the theory that she's more oppressed than the woman is more oppressed. The woman is more oppressed than the male, so she deserves an advantage. Doesn't take into consideration individual experiences.
Mhm.
My life is a lot better than most men.
Mhm.
I believe. Like I don't believe I should be given an advantage. Or even as someone who's gay, I don't believe I should be given an advantage. And maybe I can only say that today. Maybe I couldn't say that 20 years ago. And maybe people who are not white, yeah, maybe we've still got more work to do, or they really feel like they're at a disadvantage. But if you're told enough times you're at a disadvantage, you might start to believe it. I know a lot of my peers, yeah, they believe we're in a patriarchal, oppressive society which favors men. And I'm just like, but in what measure are you using? And they'll say things like, oh, well, men are, the CEOs of companies. And I'm just like, yeah, but you're assuming that's because of discrimination. Well, there's not enough women in the arts. And I'm like, yes, because women get pregnant and they want to start families. That's one reason. There's so many variables, and they base it off this one variable, which is discrimination based on identity, but we don't know how much of that is. Like, yeah, gay people are discriminated on the basis of their identity, but like, how big is that?
Mhm. Now, Nietzsche, who's not a fan of Christianity, certainly points a finger to one very crucial thing, in that he believes that as a consequence of Christian culture, the position of being the victim or the complainer is elevated. So he would certainly have a lot to say in regard to what we call woke culture today, where aspects of victimhood is being elevated in the realm of politics. Although,
I agree. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
would
Sorry, carry on.
uh, he would be mistaken to assume that it is like a thoroughly Christian doctrine rather than a heretical post-Christian belief. But yeah, he's pointing his finger to the right track.
That we're sort of adopted a victimhood mindset.
That we've elevated claims of victimhood to a degree that I think it's disproportionate.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of see that in the sort of social justice left. They seem to think it's societal systems that have given them a disadvantage, and now they're inventing new categories like non-binary. So now you're oppressed. It's like you can just wear this identity and say, "Oh, I'm disadvantaged because people don't use my pronouns, or people assume my gender," and it's just like, oh my god, like wow, you're there's so many things wrong with that. I can't even articulate what it is. Can you help me out here? Like you're putting on an identity as sort of a socially constructed identity, and you're saying, I'm oppressed if people don't adhere to this theoretical socially constructed identity. Like it's crazy to me. Like it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. I've spent a good number of years before converting into Christianity reading from the New Atheists, Hitchens and Harris and Dawkins and co. Now, they are genuine thinkers in their own mind, in their own might, and in their own in their own sense. But they harbor a very, I think, quasi-utopian belief that if religion is rid of society, what they believe is Western society, the set of beliefs, so to speak, that replaces it is a sort of Enlightenment humanism and scientific naturalism. Now, what has happened, and I certainly believe that Christianity has been eroded in the West, is still there, but the manifestations have not been as pronounced as it once were. People start to adopt, well, frankly, I would say heretical beliefs, beliefs that are based in some ways in Christianity, but is far and away unchristian. So you can point to the social justice left with its cult of victimhood, or you can
Well,
point
they
to
say
the
religion is the new politics. I mean, sorry, politics is the new religion.
yeah. So once I think once religion is being abandoned, politics becomes the new answer. And of course, on the right too, this is a mutated marriage between religion and politics, where they treated the political aspects of their beliefs as more important than the spiritual / philosophical.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't know how we I think religion has been presented to us, or Christianity has been presented in such an unattractive way that why would you want to be part of it?
Mm-hmm.
Left-wing politics, victimhood, it's attractive because you get like an emotional reward from it, right? If you're seen as a victim, you're like, yeah, you're seen as oppressed and you're fighting back the oppressor. You're, I believe, rewarded for that mindset, which is just unfortunate. So I can see why people are taking it on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure if from my reading of the Bible, Christ sees himself as the oppressed fighting the Roman oppressor, because he is God, and his power and might is much more than Caesar and the Romans. So
yeah, I mean, people don't realize this, but people say Christianity is a religion, but Jesus fought back against the religious people and called them all hypocrites. There was the religious people that crucified Jesus because he wasn't obeying the law, and Jesus said it's the heart, it's the condition of the heart that matters most. They didn't want to hear that.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, when anyone ever says, oh, Christianity is a religion, I'm like, I mean, in terms of like a doctrine and a set of beliefs, yeah, but it's so spiritual. The religious people crucified Jesus, just like the religious people are crucifying, well, not crucifying, but oppressing or discriminating against in sort of the same way.
So in your experience, have you like encountered people who call themselves Christians who are spiritually, I suppose, dead inside?
Oh yeah. They go to church on Sunday. They save sex for marriage. They don't drink. They don't do drugs. They're sort of clean on the outside. They look clean. But unfortunately on the inside, as I said before, they become prideful and they sort of die in that. It's spiritual. You die in your sin, spiritual death. I don't know how so many people have got it wrong. I don't know how. It says in the Bible, we're not saved through obeying a set of rules. We're saved through faith. It's just clear as day to me. Maybe it's more attractive if you're already I know I said I don't like identity politics, but if you're a straight white male, perhaps it's just easier for you to say, oh well, I am already all these things. I'll just save myself for marriage and live a good life and propel myself as better than others, so I feel better about myself. But what they don't realize is it's in the heart. Jesus died for the sin that exists in our heart, the nature, the pride, the jealousy, the envy, the resentment, all that stuff, needing to be better than others, putting others down to feel better about yourself. Like that stuff's in the heart, and that stuff I think I need sanctification from that.
Yeah.
And so do people.
Yeah, I believe it was in one of Paul's letters that says, was it neither Jew nor Greek, neither bond nor free, neither man nor woman, we're all one under Christ. And I think that serves as the best sort of like a payon against identity politics there is.
I would agree. Yeah.
So,
It's about being human.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So on a final note, have you come across Ayan Hirsi Ali's essay about her conversion to
I haven't, no, but I need to read it.
Mm-hmm.
But I did see an announcement on Twitter, so I'm very interested to read about that.
Yeah, it's a wonderful read. So I won't
Yeah.
spoil it for you, but you can read it to yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think this could be a good note to end on. Thanks for meeting me again, Melody, Rachel, and good luck with
Thanks for having me on.
yeah, good luck with your show in Adelaide.
Okay. Thank you so much.